where a complaint appealed a non-sustained internal affairs complaint to the internal affairs oversight panel. And it was a decision overturned. Yes, from CRP, Civilian Review Board. Recommendations have been made but overturned by Police Commissioner. And then there should, as far as the reports go, they shouldn't be annual reports, they should be quarterly, because it's a new system, so you gotta stay up on it. If it's something new, you gotta babysit. And that's
If you like, we're in the community, so be nice. You know, so be nice. And here we go.
My name is Bill Wright. Eddie Chrispin is qualified physician. He's a graduate of Oxford College. He's an attorney. He has 25 years of experience. We all in our table agree that he should be reinstated. I believe that the commissioner and the mayor made a mistake in demoting him. They assumed that when they threatened demotion, and also, with that goes losing $40,000 in salary, that he would back down. And what they found was that Eddy Chrispin has integrity.
Amen.
Adrian Walker wrote a wonderful column about the issue, in which he exposed the commissioner and the mayor who were backing this move. When their excuse for not having on the post was that you might have conflicts of interest in a BPT case came up. He would do that. The Attorney General appointed him, and as you all know, she is a very intelligent woman. She knows Eddy's history, and I have to add that Eddy and the Attorney General are both graduates of Boston Law School, which is a very stringent educational system to go through. I'm also a Boston Law graduate, and when I first met Eddy Chrispin, my first thought was, this is a future Boston University. There is a listing test they can use to vote more black regional officers. Commissioner Cox is looking to have a new test now. We could only delay that. And Larry Ellison has said on his broadcast on Boston State Radio that Commissioner Cox in the City Council declared that black and Latino officers were not applying themselves as well as the white officers. That's the kind of language you expect from a white racist, not from a black commissioner. And we know the history of Michael Cox and what happened when he was in Boston for us. Right now, I would declare that Ed Davis runs the Boston Police Department. He's a shadow commissioner. Michelle Wu listens to him on law enforcement. She's probably impressed about the marathon bombing that he did. And the staffer, who is now the chief of staff for Michael Cox, is a woman who was white, who has historically been hostile to black officers. This is something that people in Boston should not accept. And we owe Eddy thanks for exposing this by his integrity and his good character.
Yes, please.
All right. We don't have a table, but we made our own. All right. My name's Maurice Hardaway. And so for question one, kind of went in depth with a couple of these. Question one is unanimous. We all know who Eddy is, and we know that beyond integrity, he's a just person. And he doesn't care who you are, what you look like. He's there to help, whether you're a civilian or an officer. He has everybody's back. And so I'm glad to be here to support him in this. Number two, do you know if the BPD has made any progress in changing hiring policies to support diversity and inclusion? So, folks said no. I mean, most of us are from the community, haven't heard much of anything. Some of the things that were said is that there hasn't been much movement, changes, or additional policies made at all. If so, they don't know about them. One of the suggestions was that if recruitment is such a hard task for BPD, that they use institutions within the community for recruitment. They know the people, they can communicate, and they can uplift. So why not outsource so the community can be a partner with the police? But one of the comments was there is a diversity office. Her name is Sue. She's been working to try and recruit people, so we want to acknowledge when the work is done by an officer. And the cadet program in the past has been successful. But one of the issues was sometimes in the civil service we have great people, but they move on. So a police officer might become a fireman or woman, or move on to something else. But what happens when that person doesn't get replaced with someone of the same caliber because they haven't been trained or the recruitment isn't there? What do we do about that? Then, if there are laws on the books to ensure diversity, why aren't they being applied? What's happening with the enforcement of the law around ensuring that BIPOC applicants or officers are treated fairly and promoted fairly? One of the questions was, and this just a comment from someone, recent news that there was a captain who committed domestic violence against his wife. And so that person, within the past month or so, this person has not been demoted yet. Yet a past issue was with an officer named Dennis White, and he was demoted, and this captain still stands. So the question of integrity. Now, there were questions for us. What role does the union play in diversity hires? It can't just be about the system, it can't be just about the people, but the union is a very powerful system itself, and we want to make sure that they are working as well to improve diversity. Question was raised, how did the union help Chrispin? These are answers that they're looking for. And could the commissioner have demoted him to a higher position instead of going to a sergeant detective? That's correct?
Yeah.
So that was explained that because of civil service, deputy superintendent is an appointment, and it drops down to whatever your civil service position was before you got appointed. So we just want more clarity on how the system works. But I'm thankful to the person who taught us that in that moment. But we want to know more so that we know how to support. And if we need to change the civil system, how do we do it?
Don't give them no more money. City councilors, don't give them no more money.
We are going to continue with these great questions that we have here, but thank you for your comment. What happens now with representation for black and brown officers at the higher level? If that was an appointment, and a very strong appointment by someone who gets the job done, who's going to replace this dynamic superintendent?
I'd like to add
Black, brown, and Asian officers. Thank you. So these are questions that people have, and they don't know how to support, but these are some of their answers. These are some of their needs. So that's what we got from the tableist team.
All right. Table next. This table right here. Please come up. Please come up. Who else? Has this been informative? Is this informative for you?
Nope.
Okay.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
Because the people should be able to ask a question. It shouldn't be written down. They should be able to ask a question.
Thank you. But we're going to respect the agenda
No,
and the
I
process.
understand. You asked me and I gave you an answer.
Yeah, there we go. But you're going to get your chance to ask questions. No worries. Yeah, I don't know, we don't have a number for the table. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is representing table number the best. Yes. We've self-named ourselves the best table. So for question one, in terms of support of the reinstatement of Deputy Superintendent Eddy Chrispin, our table is a little bit split because what it comes down to for us is not about speaking specifically on just the reinstatement or demotion, or what it may be, but actually trying to address the best question we should be asking is how do you address that underlying culture that's the problem. The culture of supporting cover-up and protection of dirty cops and so forth. That's what we need to ask, right? Those are the questions we need to ask. So we were split on that. Question two, do you know if the BPD has made any progress in changing hiring policies to support diversity and inclusion? Well, our commentary on that is about that we need to actually look at not just hiring policies, but what are our fellow minority officers, right? Our fellow officers that look like us in the community, that work for the police department, that are in those positions that do hiring. What are they doing to make sure that these policies are being implemented fairly, are being implemented in a way that treats everyone equivalent? That they're not standing by and allowing their coworkers to push someone out of the process, or to take them out when they shouldn't be, but giving someone else more favor, right? What are we doing to make sure that we're holding all our people to not sell each other out, right? When it comes to things like this, inside and out. And that's for number two. When he talks about hiring policies, making sure that we're holding our, whether it be family members, friends who are in these positions, to accountability, to make sure that they actually make sure that they stand up and stand against any partiality. Third question, have you encountered any cases where a complaint appealed a non-sustained internal affairs complaint to the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel and the decision was overturned? So at our table, we didn't have personal experience of cases where a complainant appealed a non-sustained IA complaint to the panel. However, a recommendation that would be made for this is for the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel to actually be able to take not only community member complaints, but also complaints or anything from inside of the department as well, right? And then making sure that there's that level of, that the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency has that power to do so. Because as far as we know, that we've been informed, is that the office does not have the power to hear from complaints from within the department, only from outside of the department, right? And that hampers a lot of people that may want to be able to hear, right, and be able to say something, not to, because what are you going to do if you can't trust the police department to police itself? Why would you force those inside the department that want to report corruption, that want to report the bad apples, right? Why would you force them to go to people that are just going to cover up for them? That makes no sense.
Exactly.
Right? You want to give them an avenue to have people that they can go to, but then you're going to go tie their hands where they can't. They're like, oh, sorry, we heard you, we got you, but I can't listen to you right now.
Wave your hands back, table. There you go.
Let's table. Not only what are some of the concerns, but different ideas on how to fix it. So the number one question is, everyone at the table did support Eddy Chrispin reinstatement, but the question was, what does that mean? What does reinstatement mean? Does it mean, can he keep his pay grade if he's not reinstated into the command staff? If he is reinstated, will he be targeted, which is a huge concern? And then, will he be able to support and work with the commissioner the way he was with community policing if he is reinstated? So we all are very concerned about that. And if he's not reinstated back as command staff, can he be reinstated into a community where he can be effective? Because right now, I do believe he's in Charlestown.
Yeah.
So we want him back. So if the commissioner is not going to reinstate him back to headquarters, we want him in the community where he can be more effective. So that is what he's doing is asking for. Number two, talk about number two. We talk about priorities. We want to know questions regarding recruitment. How do we prioritize the single service test versus the veteran status? Because are we looking at community members, people who are part of the community, who knows Boston, who can be more effective in Boston? Are they going to have more points than someone who's a veteran coming from New York, just because that individual has a veteran status? So we want to talk about that. We would like the city to start looking at City of Boston born and raised, so people who are already in the community, and also check out the ROTCs. All our schools and various Boston schools has ROTCs, so we want to have ideas on how to recruit. And we absolutely agree that recruitment needs to be looked at. And number 3, the question. We have several concerns in recommendation. First of all, we are concerned the fact that OPAT has changed executive directors 3 times since its inception. So therefore, we cannot get anything done if we keep having to change directors. Who is going to continue this? So we are concerned about that. We are definitely concerned about visibility, limited visibility. Who are the people in the community who's in part of it? Who are we communicating with so that we, the community of Boston, know exactly what's going on? And the other concern is in regards to the data that was we were trying to open. Who at the Boston Police Department is responsible to provide link to the data to go into the city? Who is responsible for the data so that we all be able to see the data? So these are our concerns. So let's ask BPD. Who do we ask? That's what we are saying.
All right. Next table, here we come. How many more tables do we have left?
I think we have
One more?
this table left. No?
One more after.
Okay, you're right after this one. I think we have.
No, I'm going to be after her. I have to go get my baby.
Okay. All right.
That's Bowling Street for you. Marie, that's Bowling Street for you.
You know, right?
That's what we're getting at.
I recognize.
Remember those days?
All district. Let's go back. All right, let's get going. I think we only have one more.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenya. I hope you all can hear me and I will keep this very brief because many of our responses were already brought up. So it looks like we all have, very similar goals. Eddy, Deputy Superintendent Eddy Chrispin should be reinstated. I will highlight some of the reasons he brought value to the command staff. We all know the value that he brings, not just to the command staff, to the department, to the community. Someone earlier wrote that for question number 2, there's no DEI in DPD. Eddy Chrispin started the conversation of DEI within the department. So that is the value that he adds to the command staff, to the department, and to the community to keep those conversations going. But it's beyond conversations with Deputy Chrispin. It's the action that he follows through with that. So, and then for question 1, we had a question for the question. It would be great to understand the whys. Why was the demotion? Why was there perceived, quote unquote, perceived conflict of interest? Why, he was put into Charlestown. I would like to know how that decision was made and the reason behind the decision, because it feels very random and very thoughtless, not considering the community. So for question 2, our table said, no, we have not seen any progress being made as far as recruitment of officers of Black and Brown and BIPOC officers, women officers. Some of the things that we have listed here, for an example, it's anecdotal based on site, what we see. When you look at B2 and you look at B3, the officers that are working in those districts, unfortunately, do not match the residents that live within those communities. There's a cultural disconnect there. And that's what we see visually, right? We didn't have necessarily the data behind it, but anecdotally, we were able to kind of see that. So for us, that is showing a lack of effort when it comes to recruitment of officers of color. And then for question 3, unfortunately, we did not finish writing out our answers, but most of our answers were said. For question 3, there's a lack of access to the information, the lack of access to the data. I believe it was Jamal Crawford that kind of pointed out with OPAT on the city website, the fact that we were not able to put the dashboard. Well, that is very similar to, us not knowing when a officer is being disciplined, or if there is a report that's being made. There's a lack of access, and if there's a lack of access, we're not going to know what is going on within the community. So we need to figure out how does the information get trickled down to the community, especially when one of the buzzwords that is being used within this department is transparency. I have to laugh at that, because transparency, what exactly are we seeing? We're seeing a lack of access.
Right.
So
I think we're the best table. I'm going to be real quick because as I said, listen, I got to go get my baby, right? So, question number one, my table. Do you support the reinstatement of Deputy Superintendent Eddy Chrispin? We unanimously go, yes, absolutely, we do. And the reason why, we asked the reason why. Our reason why, we want to know why. It's transparency. At the end of the day, it's all about transparency. People are making decisions that's affecting us in our community, yet we don't know why. Whoa, what does that look like? I'm not even talking about Hitler. I'm not saying Gestapo, okay? But what did he do? Did he do anything wrong? Look, wrong. According to who? See how quiet it is? We don't know. So, the demotion in itself, we feel it was not warranted. Wasn't warranted again because we don't know. And there is no transparency. How can people continuously in 2024, regardless of what division they are in the government, continuously make decisions that's affecting us in our community? So let me ask you this. We're thinking, are we going to just continually sit back and sit on our hands and allow individuals to do this to us in our community? Don't we warrant respect? Don't we get out and vote? I'm a poll worker. I stand up all day long. I'm a professional poll worker. But I think there should be some clarity. I think we are due an explanation, and I'm kind of going ahead a little bit, but I think, and my table thinks, I'm not going to be out on by myself. We think the commissioner himself, because of his lack of transparency, I understand there's a petition going around saying we support, look, Eddy Chrispin, why don't we circulate another petition saying we're asking for our commissioner? Why don't we ask him to be demoted?
Yeah! We need a new master! We need a new master!
Vote they shit, Maria.
We need a new master! This master is bad! Another master!
Quiet, you know, we agreed, right?
Oh, can I say you guys
A new master.
like my table unanimously agree?
Right.
Yes, well, at least 95% of us agree. That's good enough.
98.5!
99.
99.5!
And now with question, my baby's waiting. And now with question number
Shirley,
two.
come here.
Okay, with question number two, we talked about the hiring policy. There's I stutter, and I'm not usually at a loss for words, but I stutter because we have been asking in our community. I'm also on the task force, on the Geneva Task Force. I'm also a member of our task force. We've been asking to have representation that look like us, representation that can understand us, representation that can communicate with us. Why can't we get representation? They got the money, they got the budget. We need representation. So that's another thing that we really need to fight for. And if we have Eddy in there representing us, looking like us, and a lot of us in here, from my understanding, it's because we've known him for years. He's done nothing but good for the community. So ask yourself this question. If you have a person who looks like you, understand you can eat what you eat, like hot sauce, what? Okay? So now this individual needs to be removed. He needs to be demoted. Why? Why are you demoting him and moving him? Because we understand him. He's a part of us. That's us. We want him back. We want him back. And then we talked about with him coming back, would it be retaliation? We don't know how that will look. But that's pretty much it. But we want cadets to look like us. We want representation to protect us, to keep us safe. And I think I'm on number 3. And guess what? That's easy. Guess what number 3 was?
You don't know.
Alright, give yourselves a hand. I know there's a question coming up. It's your turn. then we're gonna turn it over and get some feedback from the folks who are at City Hall. And then if you have questions, ask your questions. You can't ask them of each other because we don't have any answers. So let's see who can help us get some answers, right? And then, can we start? We don't want to put you on the spot. By the way, guys, they were kind enough to come. We want to hear their reaction to what you've said. And then we just, honestly, where do we go from here? Given what you've heard.
Where's Sharon Durkin?
Okay? Okay, so go ahead, sir, and then we'll go right back to the panel, please.
And I became a police officer in '82. I did 34 years in this department. And I want to interrupt your meeting and make a comment that I think is important before I left. What we're facing, dealing with in the Boston Police Department is old-fashioned racism.
Oh, yeah.
It's pulled back so you don't see some overweight fat guy with a shirt that can barely fit around his neck calling up the N-word, but it's there. It's absolute racism going back 40 years. I grew up in Boston, so I have a PhD in racism. And the problem that I think Eddy ran into is that they don't like qualified black men with integrity and strength. Now you can be qualified as a black man, but you gotta be soft in character. So when a controversy comes up, you rush to get a drink of water in the bathroom. That's the kind of black man you want. But if you're the kind of black man that says, hey, I have strength and integrity, and I'm not going to look the other way, no, we can't have that. Now, some of you may not know this because you have to work for the police department day in and day out to actually see it. There are persons unknown within the police department, qualified black men coming into the police department as recruits. That's how early they identify what black men who they may consider as a threat to their power structure. Now, why do they want this power structure? Prestige, money, power, privilege, all of it that we complain about. Before I left, as I was getting ready for retirement, there was a big controversy about the exam. There were 10 men who had passed the exam and were in line for promotion. They bypassed them month after month. You know, I was very glad that I was on the list because I could just prepare for my retirement and go about my business. But they were promoting everybody. I know you have a meeting to go on, but this is important. They were promoting the garbage men. When they show up and there was an active lieutenant. I said, well, where did this guy come from? Next thing you know, he was promoted to actual lieutenant. In the face of a federal court decision, they refused to promote these men. So this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with wallpaper racism. It's there. It's the background.
Thank you. I wish we had more time. Thank you for sharing that. And so we wanna, well, you know, you're our accountability group. You know that? Because that's what y'all do all day is to hold these departments accountable. That's what we hire you for. So tell us a little bit to your reaction Yeah, please, go right ahead.
Come on, Julia.
I'm just gonna say ladies first, okay? So I'll give my colleagues a little bit of time to get in the hot seat. So first, my first question is where's the commissioner in this conversation today, right? But if we see it to listen to community, right? This is an opportunity for him to listen, and I hope that he did send some spies here to come and listen. So he needs to recognize that at the end of the day, conversations like this need to be happening in community with each other. Because what my understanding is that, you know, a lot of the work that we've been doing here on the council, few things first. Andrea Campbell, who's our Attorney General, and I worked on the OPAT accountability department that was established. And she also was quoted and didn't know why he was demoted, right? And going back to this whole idea of what real accountability and transparency looks like, the only reason why we are having this conversation is because there's been so much fear from officers who every time I host a hearing around hiring, firing, and promotional practices, they call me secretly and say, I wish I could speak, but if I do, I know they're gonna come for me. That talks about the culture that exists within this department. Because when you do have the audacity to speak up, what happens? You get retaliated against. Yep. In case in point, Jeff, we know what you're dealing with, right? If we're here to talk about truth, the truth of the matter is that anybody that has stood up to power has gotten it back to them, okay?
Yeah.
And so this is why we're here today. This is why we're here today. So what comes from this? Two hearings that my office has already posted, right? A whole entire department around accountability and transparency. That some of the deliverables that we put out in that OPAT have yet to be solidified, including the diversity review, right? Wasn't that a part of the discussion, Jeff, yes, when we established that? Where is that right now, right? And so my commitment, right? My commitment is that it's not cute to just show up and shake your hands and clap. My job is to go back into the chamber and amend OPAT, right? To figure out where the gaps are and making sure we are filling those gaps, number one. And number two, utilize my award-winning personality to apply pressure on the mayor. Because at the end of the day, she can't just keep saying that she's supporting the commissioner and it's his decision. No, you're his boss. Right. You have some accountability.
Yeah, she handed it down.
So there's an opportunity there, right, for that accountability to happen. And I'll be using my platform and my microphone to do just that, alongside the community, right? And then the last thing I'm going to say, because I don't know those questions are coming directly to me, but the last thing that I will say is that this culture, because it is a culture, and it's not just in the Boston Police Department, it is in our Boston Public Schools, because we've seen black and brown administrators fired, right? This is a culture. And what we have to do is seize this moment to stand up. And the city councilors who are here to work alongside community and have some political courage to speak truth to power and make sure that we keep Eddy where he belongs. Yes. Period. End of story.
Can you ask a question?
Go ahead.
Is it possible for the city council to call a hearing with the Boston Police Commissioner to ask him that question at city council?
I have. And do you know what? It was not even a month ago, right, Jeff? He had the audacity to show up. I even threatened to summon his little behind to get him. Okay? But he came through. And you know what? He was so disrespectful to the body and to the members that had the audacity to speak truth to power. And so this is an issue, and this is about culture, because this bad behavior cannot be tolerated, and I think that this is what the community needs to do that petition needs to be circulated, but I understand it might be his ego that's preventing him from doing the right thing. But you know what ego means? Ego means easing God out.
There's one more question, then we're gonna go back to Councilor Morrell. Go ahead, please.
So, while I agree that we're all there for the same reason, and we all believe in Eddy Chrispin, and I was able to work alongside him when I worked on the trauma team, and a lot of the work that he did for the community at that time was amazing work. My question, and I'm bringing it back to City Council, right? And this is not just in this situation, but in a lot of executive level Boston positions, so Boston Public Schools, Boston Public Health Commission, where executives are not being held accountable for how employees are treated. And I want to know, why is it that the city council isn't auditing the amount of MCADs, mass discrimination things that are going against BPS, that are going against Boston Public Health Commission, that are going against the Boston Police Department? If we're holding one accountable, it's great in our community, and they are governing the safety of our community, but we are not auditing all of the MCADs that are happening across all of the city departments.
We do want to give the other two gentlemen a chance to speak, because we're running out of time.
I know, Dina, that's why I'm standing up, Dina, just so I can real quick say two things. One is, again, I worked with Jeff, and we passed the Fair Chance Act to look at this, but the problem that we encountered was it was just for municipal employees that were not part of the union. That's why we encountered some issues around that audit. And most recent, my office filed an ordinance to establish an office of Inspector General right here in the city of Boston that is independent of the city, so that we can do those audits and that we can have some level of accountability that does not begin with and end with the mayor.
So we're gonna start with Councilor Morrell, and then we'll come back, because we gotta get through here. It's 10:09. So yes, please.
Yeah, hard to go after award-winning personality, but what is kind of scary about the situation is you look around the room and you see all the support that Eddy has, all the character that Eddy has, and if this is happening to Eddy, like what is happening to all the other officers of color in BPD? So what I think needs to happen is there needs to be an internal investigation on all the demotions and all the disciplinary actions that's going on BPD to see if there's any pattern amongst black officers or brown officers or Asian officers. And I think that needs to be brought to light so we can take a look at that. I know they did one a while ago, right? I think we gotta hold this commissioner accountable and this administration accountable to that data to see if those numbers still persist. I have a few more notes here. I think the other thing that this time makes me realize is that we all fought for police reform. We all marched in the streets, we all talked about it, but reform and laws only get us so far, right? What's also important is the implementation, how it's being carried out. Who's holding those decision makers accountable? So it's good to mobilize to get the laws on the book, but we always have to be aware of what's happening and how those laws and those practices are being implemented and carrying out. So I just want to thank all you guys for being here, forever being vigilant, but we have to continue to be aware of what's going on and making sure those laws are working for us in our favor. The other thing is I want to mention is during the budget season, what we did as a city council, Councilor Mejia was one of the advocates for this, is pushing forward for stopping the police exam from happening. And the reason why we were trying to stop the police exam from happening is to make sure that we increase the diversity inside of the supervisory ranks in the Boston Police Department. There's only 2 captains of color, 2 captains. There are no black women lieutenants on the Boston Police Department. And when we asked the administration or the commissioner if he had any goal to increase that number, he was silent. From 0 We said, can you say you're gonna double, not double, but increase it by 2? He couldn't even give a commitment to that. So we're gonna keep on doing our part to see what other ways we can push for diversity. One thing that we did for the Boston Fire Department was that we cut the cadet class in half. The year that you have to be a cadet in order to get to the academy, we cut that in half. So that's something that we could take a look at to see what we could do on the police department to make sure that that pipeline is forever diverse and having local residents be part of it. And we're not always prioritizing the veterans, but making sure that we prioritize. And then the last thing I would say is we got to strengthen OPAC. Just like Councilman Mejia said, we got to make sure OPAC has the resources, has the investments, and that they are, living up to their ordinance. I know we have the new executive director here. He's new, but we're going to continue to work with them to make sure that it's living up to the ordinance and that they are pushing for diversity and holding the police department accountable. So I'm here. I'm truly inspired by the turnout in this room, and let's keep on fighting. That's what's going to make this turn around.
It's more of a statement.
Real quick.
Well,
I love you.
okay, but yeah, don't cut me off, please. Let me finish.
Yeah.
I'm not here in support of Eddy at all. I want everybody to understand something. There's things you got to look in before you stand up. What we should be looking at is the fact that people like Jeffrey Lopes, who's in this room, a PhD brother in this room, is being harassed by our current commissioner, and he's never had nothing for 11 years. He's been on that department. He's never had a strike on him, and he's on the list. He's the 89th person on that list. A score of 89, and there's a whole list of black men on that list that is not being promoted. In fact, they just skipped 2 of those. They skipped them and put 2 white women to sergeant before them. And what they did to Jeffrey is they went and put a mark on his record so it can make it harder for him to be raised up to a sergeant. So that's the type of stuff that Commissioner Cox has been doing and what he can continue to be doing. And that's why I've been protesting him since he got in here. So now it's just now when everybody's realizing that that man is doing wrong by us, it's just when something happens to Eddy. No, but it's been happening to many people in this room. Jeff being one of the main people. So we have to pay attention. So if we're going to be vigilant about and complain about Eddy being demoted, we need to look at people like Jeff, who has a PhD in the department, who should be the one over there with the post commission, because he has a PhD, he understands the community, he's from the community, and he's a black man. How about that?
I'm City Councilor Ed Flynn, honored to be here with you. I had the opportunity to get here early before the meeting started and kind of walked around and talked to people at my table.
Thank you for coming, Ed. I wish Evan was here too, at large.
What I wanted to do was really listen to residents. And I had a wonderful table in the back there. But even the short time I was here, 2 hours or 2.5 hours, I learned a lot just listening to people in this room, especially the well-respected basketball coach at UMass Boston. But what I wanted to say, and thank Manley for the incredible work they've done, and Larry and Jeff for so many years. But what I wanted to say is, I'm a former probation officer and had the opportunity to work with Deputy Superintendent Eddy Chrispin in probation, but more on the Boston police. A man of integrity, a man of ethics, a man that brings out the best in the city and listens to people. And if they can be so disrespectful, I think someone mentioned it, so disrespectful to Deputy Superintendent Chrispin, a lawyer, well-respected person of the community, if they can be disrespectful to him, what else can happen? I also wanted to mention one other point, and I be somewhat more controversial, and maybe I shouldn't say it.
No, you should.
But my friend here, Bill Wright, from Boston Latin, mentioned the extraordinary role of the police chief of staff. I think that's unhealthy for the city.
Yeah.
I think that's unhealthy for the residents.
Yeah.
I think it's unhealthy for the men and women of the Boston Police Department.
Yeah.
That's my own
all the
opinion,
time.
based on my experience. But again, I don't want to continue. I want to listen, but I do want to say thank you to Representative Marie. I also wanted to say thank you to Ma'am Leo and the table that I was sitting with, and my friend Larry, and the police officers I respected. Many of the old timers would know them, were people like Willis Saunders or Tom Scott. And if you could do that to Willis Saunders or Tom Scott, can you do that to Eddy Chrispin as well? And as a city, we have a responsibility to stand up, in my opinion, when we see someone treated with disrespect. Thank you.
I have a question for him.
Yeah.
I got to, Marie.
Yeah.
So, council, can you go on the record that you support for him to be reinstated?
Well, I think I was the first elected official to go on record
All right, thank
and
you.
supported Eddy Chrispin.
Thank you.
I just want to know. That's all.
I know it's late. You guys have been so patient, and you've done a lot of great work. And it always feels there's so much going on in our community. There's so much concern. It always leaves us with not enough time. And so, one, I thank you for coming out. I want to thank the folks, the concerned citizens who helped pull this together. But most importantly, it's about the people and all of you who came out. What we're going to do, and I know the president of the council is here, we're going to turn it over for a minute, but I want to sort of try to close out. And I want to thank Executive Director Zuniga for coming. And honestly, we appreciate that because we're looking for answers too. The other thing is, I also blame us because we fell asleep at the switch. We think because there are people of color sitting in positions that we don't care. It has nothing to do with color. It has to do with accountability, and it has to do with character. And it's not simply about character. Character informs accountability. What we need is accountability. All evening long, that's what's been coming up for me. And since, for sadness for me, a lot of the organizations in the old days that I used to look for to do that accountability, I don't see them stepping up. And I'm not going to name names. Y'all know who some of you all are.
I'm here,
but yes, you're here.
Always.
But we need our community-based organizations to step up because you know what? That's in order to follow some of this. I was surprised to look up and see there's no dashboard. I was on the task force. Wow. There's no dashboard. And that is one of the basic things that we ask for. So, community, citizens, it's your government. It's your city hall. It's your state house. It's your police department. It's your money. It's your taxpayer money. Please get engaged and don't be cowards. Because if we don't speak up, we're leaving a mess for our children. Okay? If we don't speak up, our neighborhoods are not going to thrive. And don't speak up just because you're angry. Speak up because you have the facts. We need to do our homework because we didn't have the information. Do our homework and rely on the facts. Please do that. Eddy, and I'm going to say again, people mentioned Eddy. Eddy was the catalyst because you know what? I was asleep at the switch too. I've been enjoying my retirement. I'll tell y'all that in a minute. I have.
I'm happy to see you back.
No, we're not. But we're here today. But no. But let me tell you something. Eddy woke me up. Because if it could happen to him, then I don't know what's happening to other people in that department, and I don't know what's happening to civilians in that department. So we need to ask the question, and I'm going to say this. It's a quote that I got from the Seattle Times, and then I'm going to turn it over to our president, and then I'm going to leave the closeout to Jean-Claude Sanon. to give us some information. I want you to listen to this. Accountability. To truly be anti-racist, because that's what we're talking about, we need to stop using character or charisma as a substitute for accountability. They are not the same. Accountability is a process to ensure each action promotes equity and benefits everyone. Character shapes what actions are taken, including how accountability is navigated. So what I'm hearing right here, right now is we've been asleep at the switch on accountability, and we got to get back in the business because there ought to be standards. We need to ask that those standards be lived up to, because guess what? I've been in my house for over 55 years. I'm not moving. I love the city of Boston, and I need it to function properly. Are you with me? Are we going to stay engaged? Yeah. We're going to write the notes up, what you shared with us. We're going to share it back with these wonderful folks who came here this evening, and we're going to share with the administration. But I think it's up to you to go back to your neighborhoods. You're part of neighborhood associations, to share some of what you learned this evening. Hold your own meetings. Ask people to show up. Ask for explanation. Ask what is happening in my police department with my tax dollars that should be impacting my livelihood and the livelihood of my children. Are we going to do that? It can't stay here. It can't stop here, because you know what? I don't see them
thank y'all. Y'all come join me. I'll be
but we can
protesting.
do something about police reform. We can do something about making certain that police reform gets implemented, and we can look into these other offices that we've heard about this evening, because that probably is the tip of the iceberg. Can we agree on that?
Yes. All day.
All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Jean-Claude, and Jean-Claude, I'm going to turn it over to our President of the City Council. We're glad she came in. Her staff has been here for the past 2 hours, and so, and is that? Okay. There he is. Happy birthday.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Yeah.
Are we going to keep the conversation here until the next meeting, or are we going to bring the conversation out there?
No, the conversation got to get out. We got
We
to
gotta get it out.
hold
That's what I'm
that
at. We gotta take it back to the community. If we want to come back together again, happy to do that. But you gotta go do some work.
Okay.
You gotta make a promise that you're gonna have each of you out of community-based organizations. You all, I know Manuel is having a meeting on Saturday, so folks should be showing up to that. Bowden Street, I know you're on it. So you need to have a meeting and have a conversation. Grove Hall was in the house. I know, we need to have a conversation. But we need to get our ducks in order. We can talk to the commissioner all we want, but if we don't know what we're asking for, then we're just talking. And we're just spitting at the wind. So therefore, we need to understand what it is that we actually agreed to, and then what we're not getting. This is the beginning of that process. Is that okay? So I'm going to get your notes back to you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm sorry that I was late. I had a commitment that I couldn't get out of. Bonsoir tout le monde. Vraiment content que m'ta ensemble avec nous assoya. M'te là plus bonheur, m'te au bagay. An activité m'te doit faire. Just so that everybody knows, from the beginning, even before this happened, Eddy, just by virtue of him being a community leader, by him being a family friend, has kept me at pace every step of the way with how difficult it has been to get and fight for the change that we have. And I don't want to reiterate everything that's been said, but I'm sure Councilor Orrell talked to you about conversations that we continue to have. I see Jeff Lopes in the back, with the administration and with the commissioner about, before this even went down, about what it looks like and what it should look like to really push for equity and bold change in the department. That means, yes, having a diverse command staff, but it also means having diversity in the ranks. Our captains, our detectives, our sergeants, that's important. And we were led by Councilor Orrell in the budget process to really think about what that could look like. So, you know, that was a challenge. It was a challenge to the system in terms of the pace of change. I think, and that's where a lot of disagreement. What should the pace of change be, and what should it look like? Ma traduit ça en créole parce que me connais que moun là c'est créole yo parler. Depuis avant ça s'est passé avec Eddy, nous étions là, nous avons lutté avec Eddy, et puis moi-même avec Eddy, nous parlons chaque jour. Nous parlons de ça qui est arrivé. Même avant ça, c'est arrivé. Nous avons parlé, puis nous avons vu qui problème qui se présente dans le département.
Oui, nous avons un monsieur noir qui en charge, mais des fois, il pas utiliser tout pouvoir pour le changement que nous avons besoin. Ça veut dire, oui, même les gens qui noirs qui sont avec nous dans le command staff, nous avons des gens qui noirs qui ont pouvoir comme député, qui ont pouvoir comme sergent, qui ont pouvoir dans l'autre bureau dans la ville de Boston. Et puis c'est sur ça qu'on travaille. Jeff Lopes qui là, c'est lui-même qui est président de même Léo, et puis nous travaillons, c'est lui-même qui donne toute l'information. Et puis moi-même, j'ai conversation après conversation avec magistrats, avec commissionnaire. Ça c'est pas une nouvelle bataille. And so when this happened to Eddy, you know, Eddy and I were talking before it became a thing. And he did the research and he sent the research on why this wasn't a conflict of interest. And in my conversations with the mayor, I emphasized that. And one of the issues was that there were ever-changing reasons as to why he couldn't be on post commission and on command staff. I made the position clear, and many of us know that Eddy is a community leader, not just for the Haitian community, but for so many. And I've had so many conversations. I've had so many conversations with community members, and I've had conversations with police officers of all ranks and of all backgrounds who don't understand why this happened. They do not understand why this happened. Some of them won't be on the record, some of them will be off the record, but they cannot. And the Globe has now written about this 3 times. You have a full editorial board. And so I am deeply disappointed that this has happened, made that disappointment very clear, and also advocated very strongly for Eddy's reinstatement, because it's unacceptable. Someone who cares deeply, the mission of the Post Commission and the mission of the command staff at Boston Police Department should be aligned. It's all about how we are improving police relations and community trust. No one has done that better than Eddy.
No.
When we talk about Eddy's commitment to community policing, who do you see outside in community? I think all of us could probably name 10 officers that we see all of the time, and Eddy is one of them. And so I'm deeply disheartened by this, by what has transpired here. I know that there have been difficult moments prior to this, so that's also why I know I'm like, this is not a conflict of interest. There might be something else going on here. Eddy connaît que me supporte lui là, m'a comparer avec lui, m'a continuer à lutter ensemble avec lui, parce qu'il me connaît que c'est bien l'autre bagaille, bien l'autre raison que yo pas voulu chuter là, dans position ça. Puis m'a continuer à lutter ensemble avec lui.
Merci.
I running for office and they're not here.
All right, so what we're hoping that I know they'll take the message back. We know the fight's not over. We're not letting you all fall off the hook, because we think the fight needs to continue. And as it relates to not just Eddy, but the rest of the issues that were raised here. And so we're going to get you the notes, and then we're going to, hopefully we'll be able, some of folks will be able to have future meetings to figure out where we're going. So can we, I know we're going to try to close out.
Quick.
Yep.
Good question, where's Henry Santana?
Incredible information has gone forward for this community to embrace the change that could potentially come. As long as that mayor is taking advice from Ed Davis.
Thank you, somebody else is with me.
And I'm hoping that this council will talk to the mayor about getting a diverse group of folks to advise her. There's been some very historical leaders in the police ranks that she could draw from. Ed Davis is not the one, period. And that needs to go on record. So for us to look at this appropriately, as long as she is taking advice from him, she's saying to us that this department is going to continually create spirit murder in the lives of these police officers. And that has to stop. And so until that changes, that's the barometer for this community. Thank you.
This is just about the final word. I've received a phone call insisting that Mr. Clark told Eddy, by the 6th, I want you out. You'll be demoted. He's got a second phone call. I want you out before that, on the 4th. So imagine the anger that is coming from this man, but it's not toward him, it's actually toward all of us in here. Folks, we are in this together.
Not towards me.
We have a petition that's out, and it has gone already to the office of the president. It has gone to the AG, the Maura Haley, as well as Mayor Wu and Mr. Cox. The moment I'm talking to you right now, there's 497 people who have already signed in. If you hit that QR code, let's make it tonight 1,000.
No.
Please, go on out there and do what you got to do. If you are not in it, that's okay, but those who are in it, I'm talking to you. Let's make it happen. Let's make it work, okay? We've got to do this. And the fight is not over, okay? We are not going to sleep anymore.
That's right. Are we awake?
Because our community is being affected. We've got to wake up and at least leave it better for the next generations to come.
Mr. Hunter was affected too. His teeth were knocked out.
There's one more. Thank you so much. You guys have been amazing.
Hunter versus Chrispin.